So the wheels of my Pelican 1535 Air finally died after about 7 years of use. The rubber that kind of covers the wheels to make them roll smoothly, they both ripped off on my last trip. And it was kind of a pain because I had to carry it around, otherwise it would just be like really wobbly. And so I looked online to see how easy it would be to replace these things. And you would think that it would be an easy process, but I just couldn't find any official information. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right place, but I did reach out to Pelican as well, but I haven't heard back from them. So I started looking deeper online, found some tutorials, and everyone has a little bit of a different process of how they like to approach it. So I thought I would make this video because I just kind of pulled information together and I thought it might be helpful for anyone that's in a similar situation. All right, so let's get to it. I ordered a bunch of stuff on Amazon, and you definitely probably don't need as much stuff as I do, but I really just wanted to kind of customize the wheels and give it a little bit of flair. First, you need a screwdriver. You then need a set of, these things are called pin punch tools. And other people have said that you can use like small screwdrivers, but these have flat heads here, so it's less likely to damage whatever it is you're kind of punching out. And this gets the axle out of the wheel itself, so you can actually remove the wheel. We have a mallet, a rubber mallet here. I guess you could theoretically use a regular hammer, but this is just made of rubber, so it's softer for the more sensitive components. So I'm just jumping in here from the end of the video after I did this. And I just wanted to make a comment that the mallet and the pin punch tool were not great options for the 1535. They might work well for the other regular Pelicans, the non-air ones, but it's really hard to get leverage. So instead, I would recommend a C-clamp, and you'll see in the rest of the video why, but I just wanted to splice this in the beginning. That way, when you're putting together a tool list, you'll kind of have an idea of what you need. All right, so for the actual components of the wheels, we have several different parts. We have the wheel itself, the star, and these are basically inline skate wheels. It says right here that they're 58 millimeters, and I'll put this in the description below, and I believe it's a 59 millimeter on the original Pelican wheels. So people said, anywhere between like 58 and I think 63 up until there, the diameter of the wheel itself would work. So inside the wheels, you use a bunch of bearings. So this is another thing that I bought. Bearings, if you're not familiar, is essentially like kind of be more frictionless so it can roll a little bit easier. And then we have some spacers, which essentially allow the bearings to kind of fit into the wheel itself. And I'll show you that in a second. And then the last thing is some washers. And these basically will fill in the space in between the two sides of the wheel, so that it doesn't get all wobbly, because I think these are a little bit thinner than the actual Pelican. All right, so I'm gonna start with step one, and taking out the screws here for this entire area. The normal Pelican cases, the ones that are not airs, I believe all the wheels are separate components, so they're a little bit easier to take out. This one, for the airs, you have to take off the entire panel. All right, so this is the back panel that's off of the Pelican case now. I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but there's a little silver axle thing here that goes through and holds the wheel together. That's the part that we have to kind of get out. You can see it better a little bit here. And from what I've read online, people say to punch it from the inside out, because one side has like a stopper that makes it a little bit harder. If you try to go the other way, it just won't come out. So we're gonna use the pin punch tool to do that with our rubber mallet to try to get these out. We'll see how it goes. All right, just an update. I had the most insane time trying to get leverage with the pin punch, because it's the pin punch tool that I had, it was a little too long for this. So I had to kind of go in at an angle, but then you can't get enough leverage to really get a lot of force through it. So the pin just wasn't coming out. So basically, I'd read somewhere else online that someone used kind of like a vise slash C-clamp situation, which is what I ended up doing. All right, I'm gonna show you quickly what I'm talking about here. I have the Allen key here, the small 7/32 size. It's going into the axle. It's a little bit smaller. And then I have the C-clamp here, which kind of grips it together. You can make it tighter. And what that eventually does is pushed the axle out. The regular Pelicans with the separate wheel component, I could see that it was much easier for the people who made those tutorials to push them through, because you can get as much leverage as you want and push it straight down with the mallet. Whereas this one, this other wheel casing is in the way. So if it's like this, you can't really get a lot of leverage down. The pin punch has to come in at an angle. So it's just super awkward. But I'm glad someone else posted that their solution was just using the C-clamp to push this axle out. So it took me about half an hour to figure that part out. So I hope that helps someone if you're kind of confused and you have an air and you're trying to figure out like how to get this freaking axle out, because it's just really wedged in there. The knurled side goes on the outside, so you just got to remember that portion of it. And now the wheel is free. Holy shit, there's a lot of crap in there. We're gonna try to put the new wheel in. All right, so we have our wheel here. I'm gonna take the first bearing And all you need to do is just kind of push it in to one side of the wheel. So that's in there now. Bearing spacer, 6mm to 8mm, and you see that it's kind of just holding onto the bearing on the other side. Now what we want to do is put this other bearing in here, and it completes the wheel. So it takes a little bit of force here, so I'm going to just do that and come back with you. All right, so we have bearings on both sides of the wheel now. And before we put it on, we basically have to put some washers in between here, because you can see that there's just a bit of play in between. People have said that it's 2 washers on the inside, 1 on the outside. And you can use some super glue to hold it in place when you hammer it in. Okay, so I got the washers in, and you can see the wheels here. I have the C-clamp in, so instead of like constantly banging on it with the mallet, basically just going to use this to put the screw, the axle back in. It's going in slowly, but basically, yeah, and the axle is basically back in. So this is the old wheel. You can see how when you roll it, it just like immediately stops. Granted, there's some dust in here, but you know, it never really rolled great. But this one, now that the axles are in, the washers and the bearings are in, you can just see like it's just so much smoother in terms of like, all right, both wheels are finally back on with what felt like eternity. Let's put it back on the actual case and see how it rolls. All right, so this is the 1535 with the new wheels on there. Let's see how it sounds. It's pretty quiet, man. It's pretty nice. And this is a 1510 that I have with the normal wheels. Let's see what it sounds like. Wow, that is basically significantly louder because the other one was almost silent. All right, so I'm basically out here gonna test it on concrete. I think that's the biggest tell. I have the 1510 here with the normal wheels. Let's just roll it for a little bit and see how it sounds. I mean, this is the normal Pelican sound. You can know, I feel like you guys all know what this sounds like. It's pretty loud, especially on, you know, when you're rolling over gaps and stuff like that. All right, this is the 1535 with the new wheels on there, and let's hear what it sounds like. Whoa, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but that is significantly better. It's just not as like grating sounding, like G-R-A-T-I-N-G. It's like not as harsh. I mean, there's definitely still some sound on here, but it's not as bad as the normal one. So we do get a little bit of reduction in the sound. Rolling, it feels sort of the same, I guess. But that's basically what it sounds like. It wasn't the main reason why I swapped out the wheels. I mean, they were broken anyway, but it gives me a lot of confidence that these wheels are a bit more silent, especially indoors. They're essentially quiet. Outdoors, you still hear a little bit of that rattling sound, but it's like significantly softer than the regular Pelican wheels. So I'm really happy with how these came out. Hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, post them below. I can see why now that every single tutorial is a little bit different, because just depending on the Pelican case that you get, there's so many different configurations that you could potentially end up with. So all of the specs that I use for the Pelican replacement wheels will be in the description. And yeah, any questions, again, post them below. Hopefully that was helpful for people out there who are in a similar situation. I'm not a DIYer at all. I tend to just outsource, you know, repairs or anything of that nature to the experts. But in this particular case, again, it was really hard to find information about this. I'm not really sure why, but I ended up just wanting to do this as a little side project and see how it went. And yeah, so if you're not a DIYer, don't be afraid, it is doable. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.